Antrich und Ehre, war sich der noch angesäche. So bist du ihr aller Ehre. Was ist Wundes hier geschäche? Dass ein Magd ein Kind gebar, ihre über aller Engel schar. Was das nicht ein Wunder gab.
This is The New Right, a podcast for the lost arts, reclaiming the literary holy land from the heathen. This is Dan Baltic.
And this is Matt Pegas.
And this is I'm going to say the 23rd episode here, Matt. Am I right?
That's correct. Yep.
Awesome. Wow. All right. So it's the 23rd episode, and we are here with Howling Mutant, who we're really excited to have you on. Honestly, one of the funniest voices on Twitter. His account always makes me laugh.
Thank you. Generally agreed upon across the board. I feel like you have a lot of fans.
I don't know about that.
Hundreds of likes can't be wrong. Hundreds of likes, thousands. So Mutant, and I think you prefer to be called Mutant as opposed to Howling. That on the Jackpod, that was cited as a way that distinguishes.
I guess. I mean, either way is fine, really. But people kind of normally defer to Mutant for whatever reason, as opposed to Howling.
Okay.
Have there not been? There's been incarnations of the account in the past that were like Screaming Mutant.
There was. Well, I think the first one was Depraved Mutant. Then
I kind of remember that. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't have a lot of followers. So, and then there was Screaming Mutant. There was Hunted Mutant that got deleted very quickly. And then,
Punished Mutant, right?
Punished Mutant. I always remember where everyone was saying Punished when we'd come back from it. Like, that's like kind of cringy now, but there was Punished Mutant.
Looking for my friends,
Yeah, I was putting up like a sad little Apu with a coffee cup saying, "Where are my friends at?"
But these incarnations, they happen because you've gotten kicked off, or they just
because I keep getting banned. There's not like they're not like different like levels,
like David Bowie like, phases.
This is my thin white Duke phase. Like no, it's because Twitter keeps shit canning me. But I've been doing pretty good on this one, so fingers crossed. It's been like a couple 2 years.
Absolutely.
It's like I could never make it more than 6 months before.
Yeah, no, happy that you're still here with us, and hopefully for a long time. And
well, I'll tell you, the key is don't talk to blue checkmark people.
Oh, totally.
Like, don't interact with them at all, even if they're like okay, like if their fans report you, the reports on that like are taken like way more seriously than like regular reports. So I just don't talk to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's my policy. I think mine and Matt's policy, just don't quote tweet anything that anyone who is like not on your side says.
You've got to embrace the echo chamber, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah, it's kind of like you would think they would encourage you to talk to people who are kind of outside of your worldview, but
no.
No, just stick to the incel groypers that you're comfortable with.
If it's got a frog, it might be okay.
Yeah.
If you never know, though, it might not be. So I mean, Mutant, you've been on a lot of pods we love. You've been on Jack's Pod. You've been on Dead Post. You've been on a Jack's Pod being Perfume Nationalist, which all our listeners probably know. Crucially, another like comedy Twitter guy who we love, Brendan Lusso. Mm-hmm. You've been on, of course, Tales from the Mall.
Yeah, I love Tales from the Mall.
Yeah,
very funny show. Brendan's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So take it away, Mutant. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I mean, do you have anything in particular you want to discuss? Or, and I read the thing, the little like kind of outline type thing.
Well, I mean, like, how about we just get into like comedy Twitter, and I mean, like, you're like we said, like one of the, in our opinion, and many others, the funniest accounts out there, and so like comedy, and I think you listened to, or maybe you didn't listen to, but I sent you our live from New York New Right comedy episode. And there we kind of like broke down. We think comedy is in a bit of an interesting place today because, I mean, comedy, in our opinion, is kind of, it's about saying the kind of true things that are suppressed by the current regime, the current power structure. And so, like, well, the current, power structure is obviously of the, center left, what have you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so, like, anything that is, like, kind of, like, going to shock the normies is pretty much going to come from the right. Like, it'd be really hard to, like, shock, people from the left because, like, everything in the news is already, like, well...
Yeah, like, what could you say that was, like, too far left where people would be, like, actually really offended? I can't even...
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, even when people do cross certain lines, like, just for example, if someone says something about like minor attracted individuals or something like that, that gets made fun of.
I guess that would be.
Yeah,
that's so far,
right?
It's like,
and like with the whole cuties controversy, which that probably was bullshit, by the way. I didn't really look into it, but anyway, basically, even when you do cross a line that. Of like left may not even be the word, but of like, I don't know, pro degenerate. I don't know what to call it. Even when you do cross that line, you have a built-in PR team defending you. So it's like, even if it's agreed upon, like, oh, that wasn't cool. It's like, but this is what she actually meant. You know what I mean? So that's the difference.
You're not going to get fired for it either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like taking people aback. It's not like, or like you might, but it's kind of like, oh, well, we kind of saw the progression there. Like yeah, they're probably going to talk about, being pedos eventually. Yeah. And it's like, whereas like from the right, like it's, like things, and like we'll get into it more, but like stuff, like one of the reasons why we think Nick Mullen is really funny and like Sam Hyde is, they say stuff that is like everyone kind of knows is true, and but to hear it actually said out loud is just like shocking because like, oh fuck, you're not supposed to say that, you'll lose your job, friends.
Well, it's almost like a relief when you hear someone else say it because it's just been inside your skull, like however long you don't hear anybody. Oh, thank goodness I'm not the only person who's made this observation.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like and that's like the cathartic point of humor, right?
Yeah.
Like you hear someone say something that's true, and like maybe it's uncomfortable, maybe it's a difficult truth, but like that, like, it immediately being brought into the open in a way that's funny is like, it helps you kind of like assimilate it into your worldview.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe that's too theory cell, but yeah, no, and like humor, as we're saying from the left, is like it's not funny. So like we were watching like Amy Schumer and the Oscars, and like the only funny thing in the Oscars was like Will Smith, smacking a dude.
Yeah, that's like the most interesting thing that's happened in the Oscars, I think, ever. Like,
that was hilarious.
I can't think of any other time when I was like, wow, that's what happened with that at the fucking Oscars,
Yeah, I mean, that was like a real cultural moment because it was both like hilarious, but also very sad and very like full of pathos. And it's like, wow, I never expected that the Oscars would produce something that was like so well acted. So
I never thought I'd get to see like the impotent evil cuck rage like live on the Oscars, right?
Yeah.
But what's so funny is that it's such a weird thing and it's interesting, and like 2 days later everyone's like, all right, I'm sick of fucking hearing about the the expiration date on stuff is so fast now.
Yeah.
I remember when Alec Baldwin shot that cinematographer, whatever she was. Yeah. That's a really weird story, but after 24 hours, you're like, I don't want to hear about Alec Baldwin anymore.
I feel like it even happened with like Russia, Ukraine to an extent. People are blue checks, whatever. People are still talking about it, but like, it's almost like it feels like that situation has de-escalated or something because the rhetoric around it has de-escalated a little bit. Whereas in fact, it's probably the opposite has happened. But people get tired of the news cycle. We're so conditioned.
Yeah, we can't keep our attention. I know that's like an old like, oh, no one has like an attention span anymore. But I think really with like YouTube and like, you know, growing up on the internet, people can't stay focused on something for longer than like a single news cycle.
Yeah, and I think it's worse post-COVID because COVID, basically the two big things of the past, like, I don't know, I guess 7 years that did command attention for a long time were Trump and COVID. People like, you know, blue checks, libs, whatever, paid attention to those things in a way that was more extended. It was a continual obsession. And I feel like both of those just kind of burnt out in ways that make people now even less willing to invest in a long-term news story. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's this sense that like stuff doesn't really matter or something because, you know, people talk about the consequences of Trump and the consequences of COVID, but most people's personal lives are like kind of fucking similar to the way they were in 2015 or something. That's a bit of a tangent. I didn't mean to go on about the news, but it's kind of interesting.
Well, no, with Trump, they spent like, you know, the entire presidency talking about how it's like this revival of fascism and he's a dictator. And he kind of didn't do anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
like nothing really changed. That there was COVID, but that wasn't really because of him being a dictator.
Right.
I mean, if anything, it was because of like government incompetence that it got to the level that it did. You know. So I think like, you know, you can the media can kind of launder their integrity for a while. Like it'll work in the short term. Like people be like, "Holy shit, Trump's a dictator," but then when they see like, all right, well, he didn't do anything. They're like it kind of hurts them in the long term, you know, and then they don't believe anything.
Yeah. I think it's kind of hurt them with like Russia, Ukraine a little bit. Not that I'm looking at the public opinion polls, but I do know that Biden's approval is like down. And I think that if it weren't for some of the stuff with Trump and COVID, they would have had a better time kind of getting the public more invested in like, you know, possible military action and this, that, and the other thing. But right now it feels like it's kind of a minority of people who even are thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, when you see someone who's really invested in the Ukraine stuff, it's just fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like, why do you care so much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but like, you're like, what, you want to go over there and fight for the Ukrainians?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's like proof of the extent that like they can astroturf something, you know, the idea that like you can get so many people who previously really had no conception of what Ukraine is or like, you know, couldn't even find it on a map. And now they all have like it in their profiles and like stand with Ukraine. Yeah. It speaks to the kind of, we stand for the present thing meme of it all.
Well, you know what though, the thing about being totally kind of disaffected and having no real attention span might actually help in that case because you can get people kind of into this engagement, but then they're not going to stick with it. People are already getting bored of it, you know.
I mean, it's like
I don't think
marshaling people's, you know, sentiments and stuff like that. It's like you know, I think people are a lot more malleable post-Trump, post-2015 than they were before. Like now, like people are just used to being like led around by the nose by the media and being like, oh yeah, this is like, you got to get mad about this now. You got to, you know, get angry at these people. And like these people are pretty much like always the Judds.
Yeah.
Do you think that people are really like as into the Ukraine, like, but besides like the kind of virtue signaling of putting a little flag on your profile, are people really that into it? Like, I don't think.
Oh no!
Yeah. I again for that first like 2 weeks, first news cycle, I was like maybe people cared, but I just feels like that intensity is going away, whilst the actual conflict is continuing to, if not accelerate, then at least remain at an even keel. I think the perception is, you know, just.
Well, it's great we started learning about all the Ukrainian Nazi battalions.
Yeah. No, I mean,
and the people who are calling everybody a Nazi were saying, well, you know, let's kind of put this in context. Maybe they're like good Nazis.
Yeah, right.
Suddenly, like a couple Nazis, well, that's okay. And it's like,
Yeah,
oh, okay,
you're
well,
gonna have a couple Nazis.
I mean, like, you're gonna in any battalion, you're gonna have like a few Nazis, and in any army, you're gonna have a few Nazi battalions. It's just the way it works. And,
a story about like A's of battalion fucking crucifying people in the town square. And like the liberal blue check marks who were telling you that like Trump was a Nazi was saying, well, listen, let's not rush to judgment on this. On these neo-Nazis who were openly in the Ukrainian military.
Yeah.
It's weird the extent that some of these blue check types are like into the ultra violence of the like Ukrainian war atrocities, which is just like, it kind of like shows like there's I think a lot of in the current moment where I support the current thing, there's a lot of anger and like bloodlust underneath it. And so when they see this stuff, they're like, yeah, just go crucify the Russians or whatever. And it's patently disturbing to see this because, like, I mean, yeah, of course, there's people on the other side who are, very, have that mentality as well. But, to see people who are like, reputedly, like, purportedly normies who are just like, kind of clamoring for blood.
Remember there was that story that the Ukrainians took a bunch of Russians hostage and they like tied them up and shot them in the knees and let them
I heard about
shot
that.
them in the head. And then there were a lot of like empathetic liberals saying, well, you know what, they shouldn't have invaded. Really? Like, you're gonna like kind of hand wave that off, right?
Yeah. I think earlier on there was a concerted effort to make it like a very, I mean, there still is, to just make it this tiny moral universe of good versus, evil Russia versus good
Ukraine. That's always the thing,
And I think it's maybe not working as well as they'd hope because of stories like this, but also I think on a more fundamental level, some of these blue check types just, at first there was very much in the vein of the 2020 Floyd riots or some of the COVID stuff, or Trump, obviously. There was this, I would see bumper stickers around town that were like, literally said like, fuck Putin. this is in LA, so it's just like on a Lexus, like, fuck Putin or whatever. And they I mean, I'm not trying to be too naive about. I'm not saying they're like absolutely retarded. Like obviously,
being very
like that video.
They're not 100% retarded.
Not 100%. I'm not saying they actually thought this, but it was almost like they thought they could cancel Putin and cancel Russia. And just by spouting the usual platitudes that they'd be like, oh, this is wrong. What do we do when something is wrong? We do collective moral action to, and obviously that didn't work. So I feel like with that not working, most of them aren't going to take the next step to become like neocon. Well, some of them are willing to do this, but not the majority. Your average lib is not willing to then become like a neocon. Like, we got to go to war.
Well, maybe we can just bully Putin into killing himself.
Right.
We'll call him fat, like a fucking loser, and let's see if he just takes care of it for
us. That does seem to be what they're trying to do. Like, they have like, Biden and other people saying like, maybe he'll just, get killed by his supporters or, kill himself or whatever.
Pretty much.
And like, there's this like Karen battalion online that thinks like they can like bully the, the Russian Federation into, resigning.
It's absurd. I mean, when they got Biden elected, like the leftists who were voting for Biden really have not much in common with Biden. They're like, well, we'll bully him to the left. And he's like, the guy's been in politics for 50 years. You think you're going to bully him? And then, of course, they didn't.
Yeah.
It's like, if anything, he started bullying them,
Yeah.
And I mean, also, it's hard to bully Biden because, like, it's not, I don't think.
Right. There's nothing to bully. There's no psyche left.
I mean, it's sad. It's also just like kind of funny.
Like trying to bully a house plant or something.
Yeah.
But of course, there are some empathetic liberals, like that woman who. I don't even know where she was from, but that whole video that was going around, I think Sam Hyde shared it, where she was like. Putin, if only I could have been your mother.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was really good.
So there's always that element. But
But she was she was being consistent to the fucking empathetic bullshit that you're supposed to,
True.
and then she got fucking raked over the coals for that. But I mean, if you're really sticking to that, I mean, that's what you believe, right? Like,
yeah, it's preferable to,
Well, speaking, not to like take us off of geopolitics, but
no, I think it's okay.
Speaking of Hyde, we wanted to kind of drill down into something we talked about before on the Live from New York episode, which is Hyde, not Hyde versus Mullen, but kind of like we both like Mullen a lot, we both like Hyde a lot, and I mean, there's a lot to say about Hyde, obviously, and like we think he's really funny. And I think he very much follows that model that we just set out, which is just saying things that everyone is thinking, which are outrageous by the current standards, and it's funny. But a kind of like in a way more interesting model to us is Nick Mullins, in that like he's headlining comedy tours, and of course on Come Town he's making like $1 million a year or something close to that. And so that means you are a member of the mainstream, basically. You are like a card-carrying, like you, if not card-carrying, you're like approved by the establishment. Yeah. And like the way he's able to do that and still say things like his you're Chinese thing, which is like, hilarious, but it's like it's racist. And like how do you get to say like, racist things when you're part of the mainstream? It's because you supported Bernie Sanders, basically. It's because, and I think you talked about this a bit with Jack as well.
We talked about Nick
or maybe I'm making that up. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like it's like, what do you think about this kind of like brand of like ironic racism and ironic right-wing viewpoints, which like are never really clear. It's never really clear how, like, I would think that Nick actually co-signs on almost all of it, but no, like it's not.
First of all,
it's
not ironic. He's just being like, racist. Like, I'm not saying he's like a racist, but he obviously means that, and like that's fine. But I don't know, like, his defenders will say, like, oh, he's just joking around. It's like, no, he's really just saying racist shit about, like, Chinese people. And it's like, I like it, but I don't know why you like it, I like Nick Mullen. I don't think he, he didn't do the thing where, like, the fucking obnoxious comics, like Sarah Silverman or something, like, they're, like, edgelords, and then they become super fucking annoying liberals to kind of shield themselves from that. But I think because he has kind of more leftist politics, I think that's what saves him. And I don't know if that's going to continue. I don't think that's going to continue to be that way. Yeah.
Right. I feel like the gig is up a little bit on that. Like, we all know that Anna and Dasha are, like, actually right-wing, basically, right?
Well, Anna...
there was, like, a moment...
basically.
Yeah. Definitely Anna, maybe not Dasha.
Still kind of, like,
fair enough.
Like, anti-id...
based or
whatever,
Yeah, like a little fashy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Sorry, my internet is being weird.
Yeah, I guess like as in like a supporter.
The Strasrites are like the almost like Nazbol type people, like that. That's used to kind of like kind of slag off the Red Scare girls. Like they're left, but they're like racist as well, I guess.
Red Brown Alliance. I mean, I don't know. All these ideas, like, there's a timeline to it. You had Bernie's 2020 campaign where it was assumed if you were a Bernie supporter, you still kind of were of the left, and I feel like that was kind of the end of the easy, like, oh, they're just being ironic. They're Bernie supporters. That campaign fizzled out, or, ended. And then pretty much ever since 2020, a lot of those people who were, former sort of jaded Bernie supporters, it's become a lot harder to place them politically. And I think the whole thing of like, oh, I'm actually a leftist. Yeah, I think in the long run, it's not going to be as readily available of an excuse. I mean, if you go back to like 2019, 2020, the idea of something like Strasserism or a Red Brown Alliance would, like, your average normie would have been like, "What the hell is that? That doesn't even make sense. That never existed." The Nazis were arch capitalists. But I feel like that because of Red Scare, because of who knows what, some of these ideas are a little more accessible now, and there is this notion that you could be of the left on certain issues, but also really problematic. And I don't know if Nick, for Nick Mullen or for these other people, if the notion of like, oh, they're on our side, they're just a little edgy. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it already does. I think he kind of got like grandfathered in on that, but I don't think that's gonna fly for like newer people coming up. That I'm edgy and racist, but I guess I like Bernie Sanders or whatever. I'm for universal health care or something.
Yeah, I mean,
I think in a weird way, the BLM stuff kind of serves as a dividing line because you either kind of cucked on that or you didn't. And so, like, the Chapo guys, they just totally cucked on all of that stuff. And they were kind of funny before, but afterwards, it's like, oh, we're funny, but only to a point, at which point we have to,
they totally,
say the party line.
They totally sold out.
Repeat the party line.
Like, and it was embarrassing to watch. Even I wasn't a fan of them anyway, to be honest, but I mean, like, just shilling for, like, fucking Joe Biden. Like, you're supposed to be, like, a revolutionary, like, leftist, and that's who you're supporting.
Yeah. Exactly. And, like, following that, I think, like, it kind of, like, Anna and Dasha, like, they kind of went the other way. And, like, it's interesting, Cumtown, I don't really have a sense of, like, they've managed to, I think, kind of really, like, insulate themselves from politics, which is weird, but, like, also very doable if you're a podcast about, like, reportedly, like, having sex with your dad. Which is their tagline. And so, if you're just about, like, a horny podcast of, like, stupid, crazy shit, like, you can kind of insulate yourself from, the larger culture wars. Because, like, bullying Adam doesn't really have a political valence. Unless it's, like, someone...
it'd probably be better just to stick to it,
Yeah. No, they get... And I know normies who listen to Cumtown, obviously there's always like those normies who listen to Red Scare, but with them they kind of know that that they can be that Anna and Dasha are somewhat problematic, but with Cumtown it's like, oh yeah, I like Cumtown. It's just kind of gets by the goalie.
Like the biggest stumbling block with Cumtown and normies is the name. Like I will tell normie friends like, oh yeah, do you like Cumtown? And they're like,
it's a terrible fucking name. I'm surprised they got as big as they did. It's like awful.
Cumtown. It's just like, and also the logo, like it's just fucking embarrassing having that logo. Yeah. I like on my phone, I'll be like listening to like Cumtown, and like the person next to me on the subway, I'm like, oh fuck, this is a show called Cumtown with cum tripping. But I mean, it's amazing. He like probably is like next to Chapo. They're like or next to Red Scare, one of the top.
I think so. Yeah.
Patreon odds.
Yeah, I think so too.
Ironic racism.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I prefer Sam Hyde personally. I think Nick Mullen is really funny, but I like Sam Hyde. I like Sam Hyde. Is just a lot more transgressive, I think, and like. He says shit. It's like you don't really know. Is he fucking serious?
Oh, absolutely,
right now? Like, he doesn't really hide behind irony. I think he can leave stuff kind of ambiguous to what he believes, but I think he kind of like he never does the thing like, oh, I'm just a comedian, which is always like the most annoying. And don't fucking talk about talk about the differences between men and women or something. I mean, don't talk about serious shit if you're kind of like retreat back behind that.
Yeah, exactly. With Sam Hyde, it's like, not to get Freudian, but it's pure id. Like he's just saying and, creating sketches and skits pretty much around whatever's on his mind. And he's just totally honest, I think, about what he thinks. And that can create an ambiguity because sometimes, like, if you're not censoring yourself, you just say shit. But with Mullen, it's a little more like, I'm gonna say this, but like I'm gonna contextualize it. So
yeah, Mullen has like that kind of.
There's a little more
like,
safety.
I'm just being impish, I'm just being a little naughty little boy. And Sam Hyde is like a frightening figure, like it's like an insane homeless person.
Yeah, he is.
Like literally, when you see him.
Yeah, because he's like Sam Hyde's like
he's like 6'4" or something.
6 feet, right?
Oh yeah, he's like 6'5".
No, I've heard he's a nice guy, but like I don't even know if I should say this on the air. But I feel like if I was gonna meet Sam Hyde,
well, did you see the thing with him and
He
iDubbbz?
just got that energy.
Oh, he's having iDubbbz like spar with him, and he's doing side kicks, and like he's almost knocking him off the ground.
Right.
Someone said it looked like
he's
they're doing an interview and he's like hunched over, and someone said it looked
guy.
like an ISIS interrogation video. And, yeah, it was funny. I should
watch that.
Terrified, and I don't blame him. I don't even call him a pussy. Like, why wouldn't you be?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Also, Sam Hyde stand-up is just like, it's a little clunky. It's like
I've only seen the one he did
it's
that
mostly
was
from
like
the past,
intentionally,
but like
to piss the audience off. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well that was his old thing in like 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
Is he just
which is hilarious to like get the audience like extremely angry at you. It's just like it's this
regular stand-up.
I mean,
maybe
he's
not.
had a few it's mostly just to piss the audience off, and it's from like from like 2016 and 2017. But, yeah.
I think that
it's Mike Brown.
If any venue would have him for stand up, he'd probably still be doing it. But I mean, he's just persona non grata with that. So, yeah. We did. I don't know if we kind of touched on this earlier, but we were kind of talking about like the difference between stand-up versus people being funny on podcasts versus like it's kind of I don't know. My whole thing was we were talking about how bad the Oscar. I didn't even watch the Oscars to be honest, but look, I just take people's word for it that the sketches and the stand-up were horrible.
But have they ever not?
I don't know. I
think
we're kind of
been like a really funny Oscars.
Have they ever not? I mean, Brett Easton Ellis, who I guess watches every Oscar, says these are the worst ones ever. I mean, I totally believe it. But, basically, I think the thing with... I like some stand-up comedy, but you really have to kind of try to appeal to a larger room with that. And I feel like, I don't know, it's not to get too theoretical, but the era of comedy we're in is like... The funniest stuff can only really be said on a podcast. Like there has to be kind of a more niche audience you're appealing to, because like the broader culture that like a stand-up comedian would be trying to appeal to, or anyone who's like on national TV, it's just like there's not enough common culture anymore.
I'm not a big fan of stand-up comedy
in
general. I think it's a really kind of archaic like art form or whatever you want to call it. It's like something from like vaudeville, or like I don't know why people still do it. Really, I've found the people who I do think are funny, I always find funnier, like on podcasts or in interviews or whatever. Like Norm Macdonald's or something. So I was never a big stand-up guy, and I never really got. I didn't get the appeal of it. I think now, like the problem with stand-up too is that like people will come on and like they're trying to like give the veneer of saying something edgy, but they can't actually say it. So they have to say these kind of bland things and then like phrase it in like a fucking Lenny Bruce or something. Like, and it's like you're just saying what I already heard on the news or whatever.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Well, it's also kind of how the dynamic, and I think you mentioned this a bit on Jack's pod, and Matt and I were talking about it, is if you're like doing stand-up, you're trying to make people laugh. You're talking to them. You're delivering a joke to them. There's like, no matter how much you want to make it kind of sophisticated, it's like, you're delivering a punchline. You're setting up a punchline. Yeah. Whereas a pod, it's almost always the case that something you overhear is going to be funnier than something that's told to you. So, like, if you're overhearing, like, two people talking, and, like, Cometown's a great example of this, Nick Mullen, like, Nick, like, bullying Adam on the pod is, like, much funnier than, like, anything he'll say during stand-up, because, like, during stand-up, it's, like, the very act of trying to make people laugh is kind of cuck. It's like you're cucking yourself to make people laugh. Whereas, like, bullying Adam is something he does for himself, and it's clear. Like, he loves it, and like Adam,
no, I think Adam
doesn't
loves
love it
it
as much, but that's
it,
funny too. Oh yeah, he might love it. And I mean,
I think they have like a weird like.
I think there's definitely a good argument.
Yeah, I mean, like, oh yeah,
there's a lot of that in comedy.
That's like everyone has the friend group where one guy is kind of like the punching bag, and that's funny to hear in something else. Like, oh yeah, he reminds me of that guy I went to school with or something. We always called gay or whatever. But yeah.
That's the Adam.
Well, that's what a lot of people talk about the appeal of Cometown and other successful podcasts is it makes you feel like you're part of a friend group when you're listening to it. Which,
I know that is the gayest way to put it, but it is true too.
But it is true. Yeah, it's like you miss hanging out with your buddies because like there's so little of that in culture anymore. There's so much disruption of freedom of association, or just especially during the pandemic, like we're literally isolated. So it's like, you want to remember what it was like to be in high school and just like shit talk with your friends or something. I don't know. Again, it borders on kind of sad and like internet pornography or something where you're getting a surrogate.
It's friend pornography.
But no, I think there's a way that it can be done artfully. It is totally.
Yeah, it's like OnlyFans for friends.
For lonelier men.
It's like pods are OnlyFans for super lonely men who don't have friends. That's what comes out. That's what our pod is.
Right. But like, don't get it twisted. Like, I also think it's high art. I think it is for a social need, but like, what are we gonna do? We're all strapped to these computers.
Yeah, I think it's art.
Might as well.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, fucking stand-up comedy is art, and podcasts are art. But I mean, with Nick Mullen, it's so much funnier to hear him bully Adam than to like hear him recount a story of it on stage. You know what I mean? There's just something better to it. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
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 Well, it's just authentic, right? Like, he's bullying Adam. He's, like, really doing it. He's, like, really, whereas, like, on stage, it's an act. It's, like, of course it's an act. It's it's a bit. And he's trying to,
and it's a rehearsed, it's something they rehearsed and they got it beat by beat. And with the Cometown, I mean, Cometown, I'm sure they rehearse what they talk about a bit, but it feels like a natural kind of flow of consciousness coming out,
Yeah, it's just totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's totally natural. That's what comes across. That's why I say. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, people who can do good stand-up comedy, it's really impressive, and like I respect the art form. It doesn't feel like very of the moment. It feels like it's played out. I've seen a bit of stand-up comedy here in LA, here and there. I actually saw Jay Leno just very randomly recently, and like, he's
supposed to be like one of the great
it doesn't like
stand-up
speak
comics
to the moment.
Too. And even though his like show is like
he's good. It was funny
for years. It was just very.
I don't think I've seen a single episode of his show, but no, he was a good comedian.
Stuff, I mean, it wasn't like horrible. Just fluff,
Like popcorn TV, But it's interesting because his whole style, that generation of stand-up is so performative. Everything is planned out. He's basically the character is him, but he is playing a character. That's how it is. And then like millennial stand-ups, it's usually, and sometimes it's interesting, but it's not always funny. It's like the new model is like very confessional, and sometimes it's political too, which is annoying. But it's always like, I'm an alcoholic, and like this is what I learned in AA, and like here's a story about, something like it's very there's a much more emotional thing where you're trying to emotionally connect to, and I don't know, I guess that maybe crosses over a little bit with the kind of stuff on podcasts, but
Yeah, I mean it's like a
pretty
one-person podcast.
Basically,
A soliloquy.
There's a much, for whatever reason, that's. I mean, this is a broader cultural topic, but at some point, a much more of a premium got placed on like authenticity and honesty, and something post '90s, which I mean, I'm neither positive or negative on it necessarily. It's just kind of where
I think I like the stand-up comedy better when it was like fucking like Rodney Dangerfield, and they just tell like jokes, like little one-liner type jokes,
Right.
Yeah.
I think that kind of performative stuff lends itself better to stand-up, and then the stuff where you're really just
why are you doing that
yourself
why are you
or whatever
doing
that lends itself better to podcasts.
I don't know.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking about honesty, maybe it's time to move on to horny posting.
What'd you say?
If if that is something, maybe it's time to move on to horny posting, which is something that we wanted to get into and are big fans of, and
possibly name this episode after.
Possibly, because I mean, like, horny posting,
it seems
we
like
think is kind of having a moment right now. So, like,
yeah,
from like Renal Failure, who is like a legit horny poster who like posts pics of like thick, barely,
he's like almost fucking frothing at the mouth.
He's like a legit horny poster, whereas like you have people who then have like more of a kind of intellectual take on being horny. So you have like Delicious Tacos, right. You have Temper House, and like I would you can say I'm incorrect here, but I guess I would add some of your humor to that. It's kind
I don't know if intellectual is the term for it, but I guess that's
kind of. Yeah, I mean, like, it's just kind of like talking about sex in a way that is like, very honest, very like, kind of like, you're not like pulling any punches, and like that lends itself to the sort of like honesty that is, key to all humor. So like if you're talking about like some like wacky, sex stuff, it's like it's very easy to then kind of connect with people because it's like, well, he went there, and it's like, okay, yeah, I can.
Well, it's like sometimes you say something truly awful, and you're like, you put it out there, and you're like holding your breath, and someone's like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. And you're like, oh, thank God, you're fucking person. Yeah, because you're expecting someone to say like, yo, what the fuck is wrong? And you're like, delete.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, not to get too theory cell about it, but there's something about, even if it's something sexual sort of for the sake of humor, there's really something about reaching in, looking in, and being radically honest to the point of discomfort about it that I think is analogous to what is done. We're a literature podcast, so this is one of the things we talk about. Like, that is analogous to great literature. If you're able, and moreover, sometimes horniness, sexuality is the most ready access most people, certainly most men, have to that kind of like well of honesty, and even like the male gaze, even like being able to tap into that can make for really hilarious horny posting, but also can be the seed. And we think this happened a little bit. We think this is kind of like behind what makes Delicious Tacos writing so great. It can happen, on a range of topics if you get used to that method of being honest and putting it into words.
Well, I think definitely like in a kind of age where people on different sides of the political spectrum can't agree on everything, like everyone gets horny. Like everybody can kind of relate to that,
right? That's a good point too.
And like,
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a point of real commonality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why Tacos has fans kind of on both sides of the spectrum. I mean, a little bit rightward leaning, sure, but like he's got fans on both sides of the spectrum. Even Cumtown, which I'm not as seasoned of a listener, but like even that, like it's like it foregrounds the section.
Yeah, I know a lot of
foregrounds that
people
common denominator
Cumtown.
just by right.
Yeah.
Because we all get cum.
Everybody gotta come.
Like not to intellectualize this
exactly
too much, but renal failure, like he has way more followers than like, you know, if their typical porn account or whatever, which is like, you know, they struggle to build followers, especially if they're just reposting pics. Like the reason why people follow Renal is like it's really him, and he's really horny, and he's horny for these fat women. And that's it's like you're following not for the pics of the women. Well, you are, but like also for you know, you want to go on this like, you know, horny
this
trip.
Horny like amphetamine laced fucking 4-hour jerk off session in a dark room. Yeah, I mean the girls he posts too. Some of them are like, is this hot or is this disgusting? Like it's on the verge of like this is repulsive to me, but I'm also kind of intrigued by it. You know? And it's not. I wouldn't look this up myself, but now that I'm looking,
he pushes the boundaries.
He appealed to it, you know. And then some of the stuff he posts, I'm like, all right, I'm not into that at all. Fuck that.
I mean, this. I don't usually get this explicit on the pod, but and I actually just realized I don't even follow Renault Failure. I don't know how that happened because I think I used to, but anyway, neither here nor there. Following him back now, but no, the types of stacked women he posts. I think there's an argument to be made that Frog Twitter, for lack of a better term, has sort of helped bring back the culture of the boob guy. You know, there's this dialogue about how the ass had like this incredible run from like
enough with the asses,
maybe hip hop influence or something.
The giant
2005
like, fake asses are horrible.
Yeah, I feel like tits
like that like Ice Cube type thing.
Oh yeah,
women do
I feel like
I mean,
I feel like breasts are kind of coming back, and I wonder if there is. I do kind of feel like some frog accounts.
Well, I'm just
may have helped influence that.
Cat thing is kind of winding down, where like everyone on right wing Twitter was like kind of anti-sex and pretending like you just go to church and say the rosary and like the whole like anti-Coomer thing. I mean, I get it if you're too into the shit, but like there was a whole like kind of right wing thing about like you know the return posting and like posting pictures of like women in drindles and fucking in a field somewhere.
Oh yeah.
So that always bored the shit out of me. Sometimes that's kind of run its toll.
Yeah, that shit never had much life. Yeah, I think it has run its toll. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that does seem to be like a real schism on the right in Twitter. You got like the trads, but even like among the frogs, you do have some who are just kind of like, you know, like being horny is in some sense like a bit of a like, you know, it's not necessarily an alpha characteristic.
Oh, it's definitely
it can be like kind of like pathetic. It can be kind of desperate. Yeah. So like, you know, if you're on like, you know, hardcore like frog alpha Twitter, like you gotta be, you know, whatever. Like yeah, it's like horny posting is like, I think there's this kind of weird tension there where it's like, you know, some people on the right will admit it's funny and it's like, you know, kind of cool.
Oh, I've had people
also
on the right
like
get pissed at me
distasteful.
Yeah. It's all about control. I think there's ways to thread this needle, and I think there's a lot of accounts that do. And there's a lot of accounts that kind of can appreciate a certain amount of socially conservative values, quote unquote, while still appreciating.
I think for the most
posting.
part, there's some guys who seem like kind of fucking spurgs about it, who will like get pissed off, but like.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of.
I think that's just like that's
there may be spurgs on both sides.
Run into people like that,
Just being online, exactly. I mean, I've said this multiple places. I've said it on the pod. I think I've written about it even. Like, You got to thread that needle between the smarter manosphere guys talking about this too, like Hartis. Like you got to thread that needle between being horny and being sometimes attracted to like just sort of the degraded filth of the world. Like as a man,
horny for the filth of the world
a little bit, but also like.
No, I like it.
That's a stupid way of putting it, but you know what I mean. Like
yeah.
You're horny for smut. Like you want that. But also, like, you have to be, like, vertically oriented, like, because that's what makes you have the right, is, like, if you're, you value greatness, to put it a little too simplistically. Like, that's kind of the philosophical undercurrent of being, like, a right-wing person, valuing hierarchy, whatever. Like, I think there is a way to thread that needle where, like, you embrace the energy, the reproductive force represented by horniness, while
even
also
one up to God.
like
you did like the football player.
I think exactly. I'm doing that on the camera. Yeah, I think it can be done, and I'm not trying to like hero worship any accounts or anything. We all have nuanced takes over, but like even someone like Bap is pretty good about talking about this, where he's kind of an anti porn guy a little bit, but also like not necessarily pro porn. Like it's like it's people like that from Frog Twitter encourage the masculine control or whatever, but also like don't have a high tolerance for like squeamishness about sex. It's a needle that can be threaded, I think.
I mean, I think Terror House, as a publisher, does a pretty good job of this. Like, they, like, arguably are a kind of dissident right publisher, but, like, have, really, like, horny books that they publish. So, I think there's definitely this kind of... And, like, Tacos is not very political, necessarily, but, like, it seems like he does have kind of those... higher values, shall we say?
Yeah, he kind of backs off. He almost seems like he's almost on the right, and then he'll pull back. I like him, but like he does, like he flirts with the idea, and then he has to go back to, oh no, like some people like can't get past a certain point where they feel like they feel like bad people or something if they go past it, so they like kind of pull back. But I think that's a good point you made. Like I don't like the whole like anti-sex thing, but I think control, like being in control of yourself and like having self-discipline, that is something that I think is important, And like also, if just because you're talking about something doesn't mean you're actually doing it. You know what I mean? Just because like people talk, people sometimes address you like you just told them like a life story, and it's like this is just a weird scenario I made up. Like. You don't have to get mad at me over it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Like, there's a difference between being a quote-unquote coomer and, like, just, like, enjoying a kind of, like, book that's, like, horny, or, like, enjoying, like, see a kind of, like, fat-ass woman walk by, and you're just, like wow. And, like, that's okay. Yeah. That's, like, it doesn't mean you're a coomer.
No, yeah.
It doesn't mean you're...
it's always...
Like, you can coom,
if your
but
whole
that doesn't mean
fucking
you're
life is
right.
Like just watching porn. Do you ever see, like, the MTV True Life, I'm Addicted to Porn? Where, like, the guy... The guy would just watch
but
it
sounds,
and then when he was jerking off, he'd put on a porn video and just smoke a cigar and like watch it like a fucking movie, you know what I
mean? like a boss.
Yeah.
I told this. I had a roommate, and he was like a black Muslim guy. He'd been in prison. He got out, and we had like rooms next to each other, and he would just go into his bed and he would watch porn on his phone on full blast, but he would just like enjoy it, like with the door open. But there was always this tension, like, he would watch it. You would even watch like the story parts, like you could hear the dialogue, and he would just sit there watching it like it's like a fucking movie. Weirdest thing I ever saw, but yeah, I guess there are people who do that. They just watch porn like to relax. And I remember I had like a weed dealer, and I'd go over, and every time I was over there would be like a porn DVD playing, just like in the background.
Yeah.
Like, hanging out and like doing whatever.
Well, I think about that with the different eras of porn. Not that I'm a connoisseur or anything, but like there used to be actual fucking movies made with story.
Well, they had to. They had to do that to get around like obscenity laws.
Was that what that was?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes
they
sense.
They could say like, okay, this is like there's a sort. If you have they had movies with like stag films were just sex, but you couldn't show that like in a theater, or it would be rated.
Yeah, so
that's
interesting. I didn't know.
So that's where all the stories and stuff came from. But then people kind of like the stories. Some people like to have like a setup and everything.
Yeah, like Edward Penis Hands and stuff like
yeah,
that.
The classic Edward Penis
Hands. But I think people did get into that, and I think there are people who like would watch that and just have it on the background, as you were saying, which is kind of foreign to me. But
I wouldn't do it. I don't know. When I'm done fucking jacking off or whatever, and I immediately close everything.
Yeah.
And close the laptop. I'm like, I don't want to fucking look at it.
Yeah.
Post nut shame.
Yeah. I don't really feel shame anymore, but it's just like it holds no interest to me after that point.
Right.
It's like when I was a kid, I felt like
exactly
shame after
yeah, of course.
I remember fucking like one time I was so ashamed of myself, I threw out all the like porno mags I had collected. And then I got horny the next day and snuck back out into like the garbage and like took them back.
Dug them up.
I mean, I was only raised on the internet, so I never had the chance to do that. But I've done that with cigarettes, so, like buy them.
Yeah, it's the same idea.
Yeah, I'm sure I would have done that with smut as well if I hadn't been if doing that wouldn't have involved throwing out the most expensive things I own in terms of technology.
I didn't get a real internet connection until I was 17, and I always wonder like what it would have been like if I had the internet just growing up and just looking at porn whenever I wanted to.
Yeah.
I think I'd be like a fucking serial killer or something.
Well, that's like the big question right now is like because I'll just be honest, I don't know.
Well,
I'm
actually kind of in between because
I
think Matt, you're a little younger, so you grew up kind of with like
I'm a younger millennial, so I definitely saw internet porn at like 13 or something. But I didn't see it at like 9. And I think Gen Z, someone who's probably Gen Z, can see it even that young, and that's different.
But even
too.
when you were 13, was there like all like the Pornhub type?
No,
stuff
I was looking at pictures of tits. Yeah.
That's
Which is different.
I think.
It is different. Yeah.
Now it's like you can fucking just look at whatever the fuck you want.
At like 12. Yeah.
And I feel like that's how you get into weird shit. Like it's just like you have too many options, and you're just like
it's like an arms race,
watching people,
a horny arms race where you like gotta find new and weird shit. And like I think that is like to an extent a thing for some people.
I think
it is too. Yeah. I think you have to have a certain. I think there's probably a certain psychology underlining it, but I definitely think like there are people who get into stuff that they probably wouldn't have gotten into if they didn't have like free access to anything.
There's stuff that they like Gen Z, they probably wouldn't have even like ever understood a fetish that maybe they have. Like other generations, you never would have. You could have been your whole life like potentially interested in like BDSM or something, but all you experience it as is like a general desire for domination or submission or whatever. Like, but if you're looking at porn at 12, if you're looking at porn at as a teenager, you're going to actually get into leather and like acting out scenarios and like, I mean, I'm kind of agnostic on it. Like, I'm not exactly like, I'm definitely not like pro porn per se, but I don't know if it's as like ruinous as some people think it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you're into a weird fetish and it's just something you like, even though it's fucking bizarre, but it doesn't like ruin your life, I don't really care.
Exactly.
Yeah, like to be honest, like if you're into fucking balloon inflationist shit or like being a furry or whatever, I mean it's your business.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm kind of small L libertarian about it too. But it is definitely an open question. Like, how is this going to affect kids who grow up with it? The erectile dysfunction scare, is that how real is that? I do think that older hysteria about porn that it's going to cause people to commit sexual violence in real life, that seems completely empirically untrue.
I don't think that's true, but I think it might be for people who are predisposed to do that. It might be like a self-enforcing.
I mean, I think one of the issues.
Probably.
I know Ted Bundy said that, but I'm sure Ted Bundy would have been a fucking killer anyway, but it might have been something that kind of fueled what he already had going on.
Yeah, and conversely, maybe if Ted Bundy had been born 30 years later, he'd just spend all his time cooming. Maybe he needed more porn. No, it's a big, for me, it's like I'd have to look at some of the data, whatever. a lot of the most hysterical things people say about porn are probably untrue, but also like it's kind of Gen Z is like ground zero for like having access to it so young. So I don't know. Yeah,
I guess we'll see, right? I guess all we can do is see what it's
Right.
like in 20
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
We have a whole generation of like.
I think one of
sex
the
killers.
issues is like the
Yeah.
slippery slope thing. And so like, yeah, all this like balloon, fetish or like, gangbangs or, whatever, more, deranged and degraded stuff. Like that's, I mean, if you want to do it and like, that's fine. That's like, go ahead. But the issue then becomes when it's like, well, I'm, I identify as a gangbang slut, and I want to have like my rights as like when it's brought into the open, and it's like
Yeah, right. Like what? He can fucking dress up like a stuffed animal. Why
exactly,
can't I do
and
my
it just kind of like it deranges the culture, like this, and it's like this kind of crazy smut stuff. It's not even hot when it's brought into the open. It's just weird and fucked up. Like, it's supposed to be underground.
No, I know.
And that's kind of like what BAP, I think, has co-signed on as well.
Yeah.
That, like, the underground, like, dirty energy of whatever, like, that's where it's supposed to be. That's where it's hot. That's where it's... But when you try to, like, take this stuff and be like, oh, actually, it's great to be a, like, an adult baby. It's not great to be an adult baby. It's like, it's a shameful, fucked up thing.
I mean, that's...
Which is okay. It's like, but, I mean, like, that's where it's supposed to be.
Well, that's even something with like just homosexuality, and I know Jack from Perfume Nationalist talked about this. Like, it's become kind of like ruined because it's become so mainstream, and it's not like a cool underground. Like, if you see a movie like Cruising, like it's fucking gross and kind of dirty, but it also has like this dangerous underground thing, like the gay nightclub scenes and that, and like. Now it's like, you have like pride parades and there are police cars there and like you're bringing your kid. It's like fucking Disneyland or something.
It's
like literally totally Disneyland at this point.
I mean, don't say gay, Disney, whatever, backlash,
I mean, sex should kind of feel like transgressive in a way, not like in a way where you're hurting somebody, but like you're kind of doing something, dangerous in a way. Like that's
you're doing something dirty.
Totally.
This is
pretty much, shameful.
Yeah.
And like, if it's not shameful, if it's like in the open and it's like, well, this is a beautiful thing actually to wear a diaper. Like, no, that's not a beautiful. That's fucking ridiculous. And I'm like, I'm picking on the adult babies. I guess I don't know. That seems.
Why are you picking on the?
That's a good target. That's a good target.
I love you guys. It's it's meant to be shameful, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, in the case of that fetish, literally the fetish is to feel ashamed. Like at some point they're gonna burn out on that because it's not shameful enough anymore. So, well, maybe not. I'm not a psychologist, but yeah, no, I actually think it's a weird kind of political position, but I think that it's weirdly tenable in the world as it is to hold. Like I would say I have somewhat socially conservative values, and I hold those. Both because, like, I believe that, normies, normal people, have the right to normalcy. Like, I think, like, that's in a healthy society, I think that that those kind of normative values should be defended. But also, like, unironically, without, as weird as it sounds, I honestly do also hold those values because I do value transgression. Like, there needs to be something to transgress against. I think this is like some like weird Sufi thing, but like, the orange has to have like a thick rind to protect the sweetness inside. Or like I heard some like Muslim mystic say that about the social, the social conservative dimensions of that religion. And I think there's something to that. Like, they're just politically, I support like normative stuff and like a good culture of where it's safe for children and families and where those values can flourish, and it's as much to defend for normal people as also because I do like believe in the power of transgression and for there to be something outside of the norm.
Well, imagine a guy becoming like a super orthodox Muslim just till his sex gets better. You know?
It's not crazy. I'm not really
I wouldn't
a fan
be
of Islam.
surprised if it's like,
Yeah. What's that line in, if you've read, or I'm sure some of our listeners have read, Submission by Welbeck, where Europe goes under an Islamic...
Wait, is that how you say his name?
Welbeck?
Yeah.
That's how you say it?
Yeah, how did you say it?
I was saying like Hollenbeck.
I mean,
I used to say it like that.
Yeah.
It's his Welbeck.
Yeah.
I've read the book. I had no idea that's how you said his name.
Yeah, it's like you almost just have to think like Well Beck, like
Yeah.
Welbeck. I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't heard people say it. But anyway, one of the many memorable lines in that is something about how, like, in the West, women put all this effort into their appearance to project a sexuality outwards. So when they get home, they're tired, they just want to go to bed, put on pajamas, take the makeup off. Whereas in the Islamic world,
it's like the opposite.
It's the opposite. It's like that orange. I didn't expect to be like saying vaguely pro-Islamic things today, but like that orange metaphor that I heard.
This is now a pro-Islamic.
It's the new caliphate. Reclaiming the literary holy land from the heathen. Still works. Still works. Yeah. No, it's there's a lot to this, I think.
No, definitely.
I thought maybe we could move on to just getting into comedy Twitter, and like as we were talking before, Mutant, you've had many different handles, and throughout you, I assume, have had the kind of like zany comedy persona that you currently maintain. So you've had many handles on Twitter, and like I think throughout you've maintained the kind of like zany kind of comedy energy that you.
Oh, yeah, I guess. I mean, it's like like the names aren't because it's like a different character or something. It's good, like I said, because I got fans. I am who I am across like the thing, I guess. I wonder. I wish I could look back at those like old ones and see how different it was. I'm sure it's different in some way, but I think it's pretty consistent. I think I kind of have like a pathological need to like repeat these like disgusting things from the bottom of my psyche.
I was gonna ask, so you had this really big tweet this last week, which I guess I'll just read it if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
If you're an e-girl and I pay you $25 of my hard-earned money for a cock review, I expect a more professional response than, where's the rest of it, LMAO. And that has like 30K likes.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Which is pretty remarkable. I guess I just wanted to highlight that as a hilarious tweet, but also, what is your biggest banger of all time? Like, what is that it? Or what's
no? I mean, technically, I had one that like I posted a screenshot of something that got like 250,000 likes.
Wow!
But like I didn't fucking do anything. I don't take any pride in it. You know what I mean? It's just like it was a funny screenshot about LeBron James. Like someone messaged LeBron James and they're like, oh, I love you, you're a great athlete, I need words of inspiration. And LeBron James just replies, basketball. Like, kind of retard. I know, I mean, it's really funny, but I didn't do it. And I said something like, I put something on top of like, oh, never meet your idols or something like that. But,
I kind of might have seen that.
Sounds familiar.
And that one, like, people were asking me, like they actually wanted to buy advertisements on it. And like, but they only offer you $20.
Yeah.
So it's like, what? I'm like, I said, I'll do it for $500. They just didn't answer me.
Yeah. No, you don't. I mean, you go viral a good amount, which is great. But it's like one has no control over what they.
No, my funniest one. The ones I think are funniest usually don't do that.
Well, what's one of your favorites?
And the ones I think. Oh, I was going over one. I'll tell you right now because I was looking at it the other day. I was showing somebody and like they didn't do very well at all. Let me just see if I. But I mean, it's also like who retweets you.
Oh yeah.
Like if you get like a big guy retweeting you, that's like a huge thing. So like that's why if you have like a couple hundred followers, like I see people like get kind of upset. It's like it's just you don't have enough people following.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You need to get to banger class, and if you're a banger class account,
it becomes easier. Yeah, it's not like you get better. It's just it becomes easier as like as you get more followers. It kind of like
Yeah, snowball effect.
Yeah, this is why Matt and I keep low accounts. We don't want to have too many bangers.
Yeah, you got to keep it pure.
Right. You got to keep it pure.
We're not, showboats. We don't want to have too many bangers out there, identifying us as braggarts. So.
Yeah, we got. No, I was gonna say though, my most popular tweet ever was like a screen grab from SpongeBob. And I got like 3,000 likes, which is not very many, but for me that's
a lot.
Like above and beyond, yeah, like anything I've ever got. So anyway, just case in point, you don't really choose like. And I remember what the thing with that tweet is, there was some account that was like at penis or something. Like it was like a really weird. Yeah, I don't think it's around anymore. I don't even know if it was a dissident Reddit account. It was just like a weird horny posting / shit posting account. And it posted like an image of like fake muscles or something that you could buy, and like that went really viral. And then I responded with the line from that one SpongeBob episode, which I'm a little younger, so maybe I'm more familiar with this than you guys. But like, there's like this plot line where you can get fake, big muscly arms, and the line is like, "Now I'm a jerk and everyone loves me." So I tweeted a screen grab of that, and I just remember it got retweeted like on, I guess, like the kind of shit posting corner of the internet that we're on, and then it like made its way through like left-wing Twitter, and I saw all the likes from that, and then it made its way to black Twitter, and that's
that'll get you huge. Yeah,
black people love SpongeBob.
Well, that thing I had about the cock review thing got onto left-wing Twitter, and it got onto all the e-girls who do cock reviews, which is a real thing. And they started DMing me saying, "Listen, if you want, I can do it for 15. I'll give you a cock." No,
that's hilarious. Yeah, I think that is the key to that kind of virality. Is like, yes, you have to do really well with your usual.
You got to get it out to people who wouldn't normally see it. That's how.
Yeah, and you break into like other dimensions of Twitter, and it's interesting.
And then they follow you, and they see the horrible shit you post. I want nothing to do with this guy.
Yeah, I think with the SpongeBob thing, I was worried that I'd like get doxxed or something, because I didn't think the people who were liking it would especially like anything else I had to say. But the blessing in disguise, none of them even probably looked at my page.
They usually will just like the thing and move on, or if they follow, they'll see it like, oh, I don't like this guy, and unfollow. I don't have too much of like people thinking they're gonna like me and hating me and like actually hearing about it.
Yeah, no.
But like
Twitter's, I don't know. As you said earlier, like if you're interacting with blue checks, that gets you in hot water. But for the most part, like no one's, I don't know. No one like is trying to start up too much shit with random accounts on Twitter that they don't know.
I had a tweet, the one I was talking about before, the one that I like more, didn't really do good. It was like it's just my coworker. Last night I got home and took a nice long bath, and I said, me outwardly, wow, that sounds relaxing, but me inwardly, my God, this man was molested.
I saw that one.
Yeah, people didn't think that was as funny. I always think it's funny to think that men who take baths are molested. That's like a thing with me. Anytime a grown man tells me, "Oh, I just want to have a nice warm bath," I'm like, "Oh, what's wrong with you? Like, you want to just lay there with your dick out?"
I mean, that's a great example.
Filth. It's like.
Of like one of those things that you say that like kind of strikes a chord of truth that people weren't even thinking about, but when it's said out loud, it's like because like when I read that tweet, I'm like, taking a bath is kind of like weird, a little pedo. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't. I feel like a man who regularly takes baths, he might be a pedo. I'm not sure. Not to join the current discourse on the whole thing there, but yeah.
We're attacking it. We're attacking adult babies and fucking bath takers on this one.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, with things like that, it's like, I don't know, the best tweets, the ones that do the best, like it has to hit like immediately, and I feel like with a tweet like that, maybe some people just wouldn't even like. You have to, people are scrolling so fast. It's like, what's that, molestation?
Yeah.
Like, but whereas like the cock review one, it's like,
Yeah.
There's words on that just pull your
I
eyes.
think
to
cock
it,
review is what this. I think the term
Right.
cock review
Yeah.
drew in a lot of eyes.
Yeah, and it's like a little transgressive. Like people are like, oh my god, people actually get cock reviews, which of
They
course
do,
they do.
yeah.
But like, yeah.
I think I don't know. I've been on Twitter a while now, and sometimes people knew it. They're like, oh, you have a decent amount of followers. I've seen you like get likes. Like, what? Like, you have any advice? It's like, no, not really. I don't know. Just
Yeah, exactly.
It might happen. It might not. It's random, basically.
Yeah, there's things that you can do to. Yeah, no, basically, it's like anything else. Thing you just have to keep at it.
Yeah. I mean, a friend of the pod, Bad Billy Pratt, he has a whole, theory and, explanation for how to gain Twitter followers. And I think he's very...
I'm sure there is a system that would probably work, like at least make you get more. But I mean, who wants to fucking do that?
Exactly. Like the fastest way to get Twitter followers is to like cover a niche area, and you're the car guy, you're the the Battle of Verdun guy, you're the whatever guy. Whereas like the hardest way to gain followers is what you've done, which is to be like an actual like account that is like, okay, this is actually this guy. I want to listen to this guy's tweets because they're funny, and that's like the hardest way to do it.
Oh, definitely. It's like
Yeah.
But I'd say Twitter kind of gets worse the more followers you get. Like once you pass a certain threshold, it starts to get more annoying to like get more and more people. It's like it's hard to explain. Like the better you get at this site, the worse it gets in a weird way.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I definitely don't speak from experience with my like 330 followers, but yeah, everyone says it gets worse when you get more, and that the antidote to that is to block anyone who. That's
what I've heard. Yeah, I don't block anybody though.
Yeah,
maybe I should.
I wouldn't want to either, but
seems like I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean it.
But you get people who like just fucking hate you, and they'll like retweet you and be like, "This guy sucks." Like,
well, that's. I mean, what's that saying? If people hate you, you're doing something right. So.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. But we definitely one thing I wanted to bring up was your profile, your current profile picture, as well as your banner. Both your profile pictures from River's Edge, Dennis Hopper with his blow-up doll wife, and your banner photo is from Lost Highway. Robert Loggia giving what's that guy's name?
Balthazar Getty.
Balthazar Getty a porno on VHS. Anyway, I noticed that in prep for the episode today because those are like two of my favorite movies. I don't know if you feel the same way about
I love River's Edge. Yeah. I really like River's Edge a lot. And I like Lost Highway. I think Lost Highway is really good, but the problem with Lost Highway is like I don't like the parts with Balthazar Getty, like that whole how it kind of switches.
Oh, really?
I like the beginning and the end. I like of Lost Highway. It kind of like meanders for me at that part.
It is definitely a meandering movie. To me, I mean, I'm just, as so many of us are, I'm just a massive Lynch fan, and I think Lost Highway is like one of the slightly less appreciated ones,
definitely,
so I really get down with it on that level. But there's no denying that it's very meandering. But it's also hilarious.
I love Robert Blake in that, and I had him as my avatar on one of the older incarnations, or whatever you want to call it.
Robert Blake,
the
being
cameraman.
the mystery man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's fantastic. Apparently, that guy actually.
He was real fucked up. He killed his wife and he got away with it.
Well, kind of like in the movie. But yeah, no, I remember I watched Lost Highway in college. It's been kind of a favorite of mine. Yeah, it's meandering, but there's a few scenes. There's just so many good scenes in it. I mean, anytime Robert Blake's on camera. That scene that you have on your banner photo where he's like, "You like pornos?" Robert Loggia is very funny in it.
Yeah.
And of course, the scene that comes shortly out, or maybe right before that, where he kicks the shit out of someone.
And the driving for like what he cut him off or something like that, right?
Yeah, no, it's
and he gives him a
really
lecture
good
on
stuff.
on safe driving techniques.
Get yourself a California DMV manual. Yeah. Which is kind of a weird synchronicity because in the last episode we posted that we were also talking about California DMV manuals, but that's neither here nor there. That's just odd. But anyway, yeah, I think the funniest scenes in Lost Highway, but also the funniest scenes in River's Edge with Dennis Hopper, they do a really good job of a kind of capturing like an unhinged male horniness.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure you could probably just pick those pictures because, they were your cultural references that you jived with in some way. But I kind of saw a connection. Like,
well,
okay, it matches your brand that you'd vibe with those characters.
I used to change my little avatar like every few months or so. But like I don't something about the Dennis Hopper one people really like.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
It's good because let me pull it up. Yeah.
He has a really kind of like hungry look about him, I would say.
I think it just kind of encapsulates,
but also like a little sad.
Yeah, sad, horny, kind of slightly psychotic. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's an incredible Dennis Hopper performance.
Yeah, he's great.
Maybe even better. Maybe even better than Blue Velvet. The Blue Velvet's
But you know what's funny? A couple times I've
but...
had people go like, I'd be telling them like, "Well, you like Stephen Molyneux?" I'm like, "I don't really like Stephen Molyneux." You tell me, and they're like, "Well, your avatar, you have a picture." I'm like, "No,
I never noticed that."
I think I'm like this huge Stephen Molyneux fanboy, or something,
or do people think that Stephen Molyneux ever posed?
Yeah,
that's also a funny question.
It's part of his philosophy course. Yeah, the blow-up doll.
They thought, who's the other guy? Cernovich. They also have thought that was a picture of it.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's I
get Stephen Molyneux a little. I don't get the Cernovich one, but whatever.
That's Cern.
But yeah, you're saying River's Edge was kind of a big movie.
Yeah, I really liked River's Edge. I don't know if I'd say it was like an influential movie to me, but I thought it was a really good teen drama. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's kind of the guy. I only recently learned the guy who directed it. His name is not coming to me, but he also directed like the pilot of Beverly Hills 90210. Yeah, he has an extensive TV directing career. He directed some episodes of Riverdale too, which is, I mean, some people would say that's cringe, but yeah, he's very much stayed in like the teen drama world for like 30-40 years and has some really interesting
I think
credits.
He really
River's Edge
got like what it felt like to be like a kind of like unsupervised teen in that movie,
like a Gen X,
like running
around. I mean that movie that movie feels very Gen X, not in a bad way. It seems to, and I like how it bridges the gap. Like it's a teen drama, but also it's like genuinely pretty edgy in a way that teen dramas wouldn't.
Well, I mean,
they
killed a fucking kid.
I mean,
the whole thing.
It's got Chris
also funny though. Like we talked about this before, Matt and I, and like sometimes like the best humor comes from something that is like not really trying to be funny, but the unhinged nature of the performances is like just like the as they congregate around the body and they're like kind of like trying to figure out what to do. It's just kind of like, this is a hilarious, it's sad and everything else, but it's also, it has that kind of absurdity that, often.
That always gives like a certain feeling when you're watching a movie. Like, is this supposed to be funny? Like, is this funny on purpose? Is this just weird? Like, I don't really know how to feel about this scene, and it gives you kind of like an unbalanced type of thing. David Lynch does that a lot too. It's like, is this scary or is it stupid? Like,
I think it's meant
funny or like
meant to be both, kind of. I think there is that element of humor in there. Like a good counter example of something that's meant to be serious but is funny. Matt and I watched Top Gun the other week, and it's very enjoyable, but also like it's just so over the top, it's ridiculous, and it's like clearly not.
But I don't think
to be
Top
funny.
Gun. Yeah, I don't think
they're not. Absolutely,
I think it's supposed to be. This is fucking cool. They're like playing volleyball with each other and they're jacked. And,
right. I was thinking that
they
scene
get
too.
Chicks, and it's like the gayest. Like it's like a hallmark of like gay scenes.
Oh yeah,
films,
for sure. The volleyball scene.
Yeah, definitely.
But and like with David Lynch, it's like he's like a good enough filmmaker where like he's probably trying to evoke this. But with River's Edge, you're kind of like, I don't really know this guy. Like, maybe this is just like inept, or maybe he's really getting a weird, ambiguous feeling. Like, I think he was trying to get like that.
I think so too.
I don't think it was. Yeah.
There's a weird.
Yeah. It makes it funnier because when you're asking for the joke, it's never as funny. And yeah, the earnestness of that movie, and even of David Lynch's work, which is often, earnest in its way as well, is what makes it that much more effective.
Yeah, no, I mean the humor is often like I'm sure you'd agree, Matt, that like watching Top Gun, that was way funnier than like any Judd Apatow movie that we might watch.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's when he breaks into like, it's both funny and touching. Like when he breaks into "You Lost That Loving Feeling," it's like hilarious, but also oh, it's kind of sweet.
Were you moved by Top Gun? Is that what you're
a little bit.
Well, we were talking about when Dan and I watched this, and it was my first time seeing Top Gun, and the kind of overwhelming feeling I got from it, like, yes, his buddy dies, but for the most part, the theme of the movie is, Tom Cruise as Maverick, and the question is he too much of a Maverick? Like, he's the guy who does his own thing. He's America. He plays by his own rules. Whatever. Like, he doesn't do too much. That's the central conflict.
Though. That's the thing. He's like a danger to everyone else. And like the movie kind of played like, no, he's just a badass. It's like, no, this is like, you got a guy killed. It's like,
right.
But the movie kind of wants to make it look like, you don't try and stifle his spirit. Well, he's like causing air wrecks and shit.
I think like crucially, one of the last lines, Iceman is like, "You're still dangerous, but you could be my wingman anytime." And it's kind of this like, tacit admittance, or not even tacit, like yeah, you're still a dangerous Maverick, but you're cool with me, which is kind of like the ethos of America. It's like, yeah, we're a dangerous country that goes around fucking shit up, but like, you got to be cool with us. If you're not,
you want us on your side, yeah.
If you're not cool with us,
exactly.
You're not,
I mean, it just
you're not down.
Not to get too leftist cinema teacher, but just think about like the state of American empire and its regard for itself when that came out. That was the central conflict, and what was probably like the biggest movie that summer was like, are you too much of a Maverick? Like, that's the conflict. And then nowadays it's just so optimistic.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
But then 4 years later, you got movies like River's Edge, where some of the darkness started to maybe go more mainstream. But yeah.
Well, another thing we wanted to get into is this is a literary podcast, of course, and so we wanted to ask, do you have any favorite comic novels, satiric novels? And
yeah, I mean, I like satire-wise, I do. I don't really read books that are like straight up kind of like comedy, I guess, too often.
No satires, more.
Yeah, but like, I mean, like Welbeck is really good, as I just found out.
He's funny.
He's really like the elementary particles is really funny, but also really like sad and fucking and Bret Easton Ellis, as you guys mentioned before. I really like American Psycho and Glamorama.
Also pretty funny. Yeah.
I mean, American Psycho is basically like a really dark comedy.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Arguably, like most of Ellis's work. Well, not all.
Yeah,
of it, but
I mean,
even Less Than Zero is a little funny. I don't know. Yeah. Sometimes.
I mean, I guess like what was when the Rules of Attraction, like his first book, was kind of more straight up, but most of them have like some kind of satirical edge to them.
I mean, Glamorama is pure comedy.
Glamorama is like insane.
Almost. Yeah.
And that's what I liked. A lot of people, I think, didn't like it. I liked it a lot, though.
Yeah, no, I read it when I was like 11, and I was very disturbed.
But, that's like the age you should really be reading that.
I'm like, my God. But no, it was cool.
I like that Bret Easton Ellis didn't do the edgelord thing we were talking about before, where you kind of retreat behind like a facade of leftism. He's pretty. Yeah.
Oh no, he's based,
pretty much.
Like I listen to his podcast. Yeah, he's not. He's kind of apolitical. He's maybe a little like Tacos, in that regard. Like, I think he's...
I think he goes a little further than Tacos does. Yeah.
I think he does, which is kind of funny because Tacos is like supposedly more canceled or whatever. But like, but yeah, no, he. I mean, he had Amanda Milius on. Brett did on his podcast, and they had, pretty good conversation. And I think Brett often will avoid giving specific political opinions, but he's definitely, deeply at odds with the prevailing trends of the progressive left, to say the least. And is willing to really call it out.
Mutant, have you read A Confederacy of Dunces? That's one of my favorites.
Have I what?
Have you read
Confederacy of Dunces? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very funny. It's too bad he didn't really write much else than that.
Yeah, no, he killed himself. Not shortly thereafter, because he finished it and spent like 7 years trying to get it published, and eventually killed himself before it even was published.
It's so funny because he really nails the neckbeard thing. That would be an archetype 100%. Years later. Like, I don't think it was known. Like, there was no name for that when he wrote it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was definitely you could see him with a fucking Reddit account. And the guy Ignatius Riley.
There's an article in the New Yorker that kind of sets this forth, and I do not recommend reading the New Yorker except maybe for this article. And it's was Ignatius J. Riley the first edgelord? And it's actually, reading through it, it's it's really prescient. It's really this guy is just, he's a fucking groiper. He's, it's not exactly.
And he's got that
groiper,
very kind of that self-important type thing,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like Confederacy of Dunces a lot. I guess they tried to do a movie of that for years and years and couldn't get it off the ground for whatever reason.
Yeah, it never came to fruition, right?
They were gonna have fucking Will Ferrell in it, so maybe it's better it didn't happen.
Oh yeah.
I love Sam Lipsyte. I don't know if you're familiar.
I don't know who that is.
He's done some pretty funny stuff, like satiric novels, The Ask, Homeland, but he's a little under the radar.
I like George Orwell a lot, the other books besides 1984, the more, I mean, they're not as heavy going, but like Burmese Days and what is it, Keep the Apodistra Flying? I forget how you pronounce it, but yeah, I mean, these books are funny in a kind of sad way. I mean, it's not laugh out loud type funny.
Yeah,
I think Confederacy of Dunces is probably the most comedic novel that I enjoy. I usually don't like books that are direct comedy type stuff, but that was really funny.
Yeah, I reread it recently because I wrote a novel that is follows the kind of same type of tone of Dunces, and so I just decided to reread it, and I was laughing out loud. It's it still holds up. It holds up even better now, actually.
What was his other book, The Neon Bible? Was that any good?
I mean, honestly, I didn't even know Toole wrote another book.
That's his one other. I think he wrote it while he was in college or something, if I remember right.
Huh.
It's not. It's definitely not as highly thought of as Confederacy of Dunces.
The Neon Bible. I gotta look into that, man. Thank you for letting me know.
Yes, no problem.
The literary podcast here. But yeah, no, it's Dunces.
I like Dennis Johnson a lot too.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever read him?
I've heard that name.
I guess his biggest book would probably be Jesus' Son. They made a movie out of it.
I've heard.
The movie was not great, but the book was excellent.
Yeah.
And Tree of Smoke is really good. Though that one's not as it doesn't have as much comedy in it, but it's really good.
That's about Vietnam, right?
Yeah.
I like his style. Very understated, but packs a punch. Yeah. But unless you have anything more, I think we're probably ready to wrap it up.
All right. Yeah. No, I'm good. It was fun. Thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Thanks for
Enjoyed this
Yeah,
conversation.
thanks for coming
a lot,
on. And like
I wasn't sure what to expect. I listened to that one thing you guys sent me, but other than that, I wasn't sure. But it's good.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, it's like, I've long been a fan of your posts, and like I'm like, it'd be great to get this guy on to like talk about comedy, because he's one of the guys that's doing it the best right now. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I enjoyed this conversation a lot, and I think Mutant, you're going to help us get a lot of listeners, because I think people really dig your tweets, and you've done some podcasts, but I feel like we'll help. We'll get this out there, and everyone's going to want to hear what you got to say.
Sure.
So.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. Later, guys.
All right. Have a good rest of your.
You too.
Thanks, dude. Bye.
Yeah, no problem.